Our third speaker today is Jane Goody. Jane Goody has worked for local and national newspapers and contributed to magazines and websites. Concentrates on environmental and social issues and writes regularly for Ecologist, Guardian, Red Pepper, Big Issue, etc. And probably he's going to speak about media and journalism and world peace. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jane Goody.
The involvement of media in peace campaigning. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We'll be given 10 minutes, I'll keep it to that. There's 2 or 3 things I want to concentrate on. Firstly, just some examples of successful media campaigns that have been run nationally, internationally. And then secondly, for you as campaigners here, what you can do to engage the media. Okay, so there'll be those are the 2 areas I'm just going to talk about very briefly and give as many examples as I can. I'm quite glad there's a dais here, because as I was cycling up the hill this morning in Brighton, I got a load of oil up and down my trousers, so I was rather embarrassed about that, coming to this rather prestigious event with loads of oil up and down my trousers for my cycling this morning. So thank you very much. Now, to begin, I guess if you think of successful campaigners today, you're thinking of people like Wangari Maathai, who's recently died, who was a very successful campaigner in Kenya, planted upwards of 2 billion trees, I believe, in the Greenbelt movement. Anna Hazare, who Vijay mentioned earlier, his 96-hour hunger strike in India resulted in what he wanted. He wanted activists on a committee looking into anti-corruption laws in India, and that's what he got, thanks to his media campaign, the 96-hour hunger strike. So there are effective campaigns. In my hometown of Brighton, we have an arms campaign, anti-arms campaign called Smash Edo, which is a group of people who over the last 6 years have been campaigning outside an arms company in Brighton. Now, Brighton is a UN peace messenger city, so it's a bit incongruous to have an arms company right in the centre of town. These people have been doing noise protests every Wednesday outside the company offices. They've had protests in the centre of town. There have been blockades, demonstrations, court cases, etc., etc. And over that 6 years, they've kept the issue high up in the local news agenda. Nationally, here, again sadly departed, we have Brian Hall, who I'm sure everyone will realise Brian camped up outside the Houses of Parliament for the last 10 years. He started his campaign, like I say, 10 years ago against the Afghan war. He moved on to Iraq, and during that time he was vilified. Politicians tried to move him away from Parliament. They even tried to bring in a legislation under SOCPA 2005 Act, the Police Act, but unfortunately they hadn't realised that because Brian was actually camped there before that legislation came in, it had no effect on him, so he could carry on campaigning there. His case was also taken up by Mark Wallinger, the artist, and in 2007 Take Britain hosted the demonstration posters that Brian had in Parliament Square as a Mark Wallinger piece of art. So, those are examples, if you like, of successful campaigns. Now, what I wanted to focus on in the next part is to look at how these campaigns work and how they're successful. Now, as a journalist, I guess I have to really talk about things like press releases and deadlines and things like this, things I've been talking about earlier in Brighton. It's very important that you as campaigners realise that the media operate to strict guidelines, to strict principles, so in terms of what they will and won't publish and how to go about publishing things. Now, the things that you need to focus on are a short and sweet message, but a message which goes against the grain. Okay, so you need to be thinking about ideas which are unusual. Okay, and those national examples are obviously very pertinent here. Brian Hall, how many people have camped outside the House of Parliament for 10 years? Not many. So once you've got that idea, you need to start thinking about how you're going to target your particular media. Okay, are you going to be targeting local papers? Are you going to be targeting national papers? Are you looking at TV stations? Are you looking at radio? Okay, it is a multimedia age. Like it or loathe it, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook. All these tools you have to use if you're going to be successful in a media campaign. News gathering today relies a lot on Twitter. It relies a lot on Facebook. You know, if you think about the Arab Spring, if you think about what we're getting from Syria, all the stuff we're getting from Syria is coming from brave campaigners on the streets, photographing brutalities of the regime there, and then actually putting it on YouTube. How do we know about what's going on in Syria? That's the only way we know, because we aren't allowed journalists there. So you have to think of all the various ways of using the media, get in touch with the right people, abide by deadlines, be accurate and be reliable. Okay, this is what the press want from campaigns. If they can see that you're accurate, you're reliable, you've got a good news sense, they will use you again and again, and you'll go higher up the news agenda. Okay, those are things to think about. Secondly, how's your campaign going to pan out? Are you going to be doing leaflets? Are you going to be doing petitions? Is it going to be a legal campaign? Are you looking to raise awareness? Are you looking to maybe take to the streets? You know, you have to focus on what your aims are for the campaign. As Vijay said earlier in his introduction, what is your ultimate aim? What are you looking to get from this campaign? And then you think how you're going to be successful. Once you've done those two things, once you've thought about the bedrock of the campaign, i.e. what the aims are, and you've thought about the practicalities, who you're going to go to, how you're going to target them, the next thing is to think about the strategy, the overall strategy. So how you're going to fit in the different strands of media. How you're going to use print media, online media, audio, video journalism, and back to Twitter, Facebook, etc. So there's a lot out there. I'm happy to answer questions kind of later on if you want specific media questions. I realise this is more dealing with peace campaigning. My focus is peace and environment campaigning in terms of my journalism, so I can kind of offer some advice on those areas. Just to sum up in completion, with your campaign, if you're looking at a national campaign or an international campaign as we have here, you need to keep a consistent message, and that's from grassroots up. All successful campaigns start at the grassroots. If you have a bedrock of support, if you have a successful grassroots campaign, then you build on it. And I'll start as I finish with the example in Brighton, the anti-arms campaigners there. They started off very small, 3 or 4 people outside an arms factory. That led to 5,000 people on the streets of central Brighton, all saying, we don't want an arms company in our city. Okay? And then it came into a national focus with other campaigns in other parts of the country. So you can be successful, but you need good solid foundations to be successful. Okay, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Valerie McKee, and Valerie is the Senior Ambassador for Rights and Humanity, an organization which pioneered the human rights approach to development and works to promote human rights and responsibilities. And probably Valerie is going to say human rights approach to world peace as well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Valerie McKee.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. It's a great honour for us at Rights and Humanity to be involved with Vijay in the 4D campaign. Rights and Humanity was founded back in 1986 by a woman with a passion, our founder and president, Julia Hauserman. Julia was a barrister who trained in human rights law. She had a passion and a commitment for peace, a passion which I think is shared with VJ. She is an example of how one woman can make a difference and do things that change the world. Rights and Humanity is very small. We're a very small organisation, but we have a big heart. Julia has been involved in campaigns, and she doesn't like to call them campaigns. She likes to call them spheres of influence. Julia has a unique ability to meet and influence key people in policy-making decisions. To give you an example of her work, at a time when human rights in relation to AIDS and HIV were looking to be legislated against in Thailand, where the policy, the law that was about to be passed was going to make it so that anybody suspected even of having HIV or AIDS was not even allowed to travel on public transport. That would be a criminal offence. Right, what was proposed was a massive breach of human rights. What Julia did was arrange to meet with the Attorney General in Thailand. She did not go in about to say this is not right. Julia went in to look for seeds of understanding, to actually explain and to influence. She went in, her approach, as she said in her own words, was a humble approach. It was one of asking questions, and this is actually at the heart of what we do at Rights and Humanity. We look at understanding why decisions are made, why policies are made, and we look for ways in which we can put a different perspective and to influence that perspective. A lot has been talked, and Vijay talked today, about the zeitgeist of our time. I think that the zeitgeist of our time can be love. What I'd like you to think about for just a moment, because this is pivotal to our work at Rights and Humanity. If you, each of you, think for a moment of a time when you were in love, when you felt that pure love for another human being, be it for those of you who have children, when you looked at your child for the first time, for someone who looked at your grandmother, your mother, a partner, where you felt pure love. If you just close your eyes, everyone, for just a moment and think about that time. Take yourself back into that time. How possible is it, feeling that feeling, to go out and kill another human being? Inspired as I am by Jeremy's talk of the 21st of September 2012, we're living in an era where we have a very clear choice. Do we want to live our lives in fear or in love? Right, we at Rights and Humanity believe that love is part of the way forward. I can stand here and talk about it because it is something which is dear to my heart and dear to Julia's heart. And from love comes trust, and from trust comes peace. Right, we are all human beings. Humanity is what links us. So even the pun, as Julia says in our organisation, where we call it rights, of which there are many, and humanity, of which there is only one, and that is ourselves. I'd like to just conclude with a quote that I found just the other day. If you want to carry a fire into the darkest depths of humanity, will you let an inner light grow deep within you? Across the earth, people are striving to be leaders for wisdom and trust, striving to heal the wounds between peoples, to heal divisions and bring peace from within. They say that our journey in life is one first to independence and then to interdependence. Right, Rights and Humanity are proud to be associated with this campaign. right? Because we believe in interdependence. It is the interlinking of us all as people, and it's interlinking in love and looking at peace. Mother Teresa said, peace starts with a smile. I'd like you to turn to one another and smile at each other. If we can make that connection, we can achieve anything. One of the greatest problems I think that we face when we look at the principles of bringing about world peace is we've never seen it. When you talk to people about it outside of the peace movement, they talk about it being a utopian dream. It's funny that we don't think that war is a utopian nightmare, and we can live with that quite well, right? There's a great phrase that says, what we can conceive, we can achieve. What we're here to do, I believe, now from today, is to take that belief, to know that we can create peace, and it starts from within. If we can be at peace with ourselves and with one another and those around us, we can light candles that will shed light all around the world. That's the basic principle of our work at Rights and Humanities. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Our next speaker is Alan Weir, and Alan Weir is the Global Coordinator of the Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament. Previously, he served as Executive Director of Lawyers Committee on Nuclear Policy and UN Coordinator for the World Code Project, which led the efforts to achieve a ruling from the International Court of Justice on the legality of the threat of all use of nuclear weapons. And I'm hoping Alan is going to speak the world peace from nuclear disarmament point of view. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alan Weir.
Thank you very much, BJ. Hello, everybody. I feel like a bit of a gate crasher. Do you have that word in England?
Yes.
Yeah. I turned up from down south. I'm from New Zealand for a trial that was in the UK Supreme Court on Friday. You may have heard of it, the Ecocide trial. And I contacted my friend Vijay here on email and said, Vijay, you got anything happening while I'm in London? He said, yeah, we've got 4 Ds for world peace. That sounds good. It sounds like a school curriculum. I'm into that because I'm a former kindergarten teacher. But it's a curriculum for the world, which is fantastic. I love these 4 Ds, disarmament, demilitarization, development and democracy, because it does bring in 4 key components of creating a peaceful and just world. So I'm glad to be along here. Thank you for letting me gate crash and say a few words. And I guess the idea of today is sort of like success stories. How do we build success in our campaigns? And I guess I can bring a little bit of success from our small little, couple of islands down in the South Pacific, because I'm glad Jeremy mentioned this, the Global Peace Index, which is a wonderful measure of aspects of societies, 23 indicators I think it's looking at, statistical analysis to see how peaceful a society is. And for the first 3 years of the Global Peace Index, New Zealand came out number 1, which was great. We got pipped to the post this year by Iceland. But most people think of, New Zealand, it's lovely little peaceful islands in the Pacific. But in actual fact, we were a very, very militaristic country until quite recently. In fact, peace has come quite new to us. We were very, very aggressive. We got involved in every war we could get into. The Malaya War, the Korea War, the Boer War, the Vietnam War, the First World War, the Second World War. We're on the other side of the world, but we'd go anywhere and get into a war. In fact, you may not know this, but we actually declared war on Germany before the United Kingdom. I mean, you can just imagine, Hitler, inviting us. So one of his generals comes up, Hitler, sir, New Zealand's declared war on you. You go, Zealand? I thought we were already occupied them. No, New Zealand. Who's that? That was actually a mistake. Like the UK was, about to declare war and called all the Commonwealth countries together on the phone. the Wire, I think they called it back in those days. And said, you know, rescue Commonwealth countries, that's, you know, Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. Once the UK declares war on Germany, are you going to come in behind? And we're like, yeah, of course, we're coming behind. We love a good war. And so, you know, come the time, you know, oh yeah, Britain's declared war on Germany, now it's our time. So we jumped in, got in, but we'd forgotten we were like 12 hours ahead. Well, you know, so it was a little mistake, you know. And we've had a few mistakes like that. But anyway, so we're like a pretty aggressive country. You know, you see a little bit of it still in the rugby. Have any of you watching the rugby here? You know, our guys out there doing the haka, that's sort of like a war dance. Well, they still have little vestiges of that there. It's good on the rugby field, you know, they can get it out of their system. But it was actually a lot of education, community organising, social change, education in the schools that changed New Zealand's attitude towards war. And nuclear weapons was one of the key ones of that, because when the nuclear bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, New Zealanders were out dancing in the streets, because we thought we were going to be next. You know, Japan had come down through Southeast Asia, taken over lots of countries, was about to take over New Zealand. The nuclear bombs were dropped, and we thought it was the bombs that ended the war. I mean, now looking back, we said that actually wasn't the reason. But New Zealanders were very supportive of nuclear weapons. So we supported the British nuclear testing in Australia and the British testing in the Christmas Islands. We supported the US nuclear tests. We supported the build-up of the nuclear weapons. We invited the ships into our ports, our government did. In fact, one of our prime ministers, you know, as late as 1982, said, you know, the problem with the United States in Vietnam was they weren't willing to use their ultimate weapon. That was our country, really strongly for nuclear. But then we started looking at it from a humanitarian perspective. Not just from, you know, the bully boys and security, but what are the impacts of these weapons on people? We saw the effect of the nuclear weapons tests on people in the Pacific, the deformed babies, the stillbirths, the islands that were actually obliterated from the earth. There's one island there now, Runit, it's off limits for 25,000 years because of all the radiation on that island. There's another island, Rongelat, 2/3 of the children have developed thyroid cancer as a result of the nuclear tests. And so we're talking about those humanitarian consequences on the one hand, and on the other hand talking about, hey, look, we're coming into a new world now. You know, it's no longer 1945, this was like the 80s when we were really getting the anti-nuclear campaign going. We have a United Nations that can actually help us solve problems, and so we tested that out. We took France to the International Court of Justice over the French nuclear testing, and lo and behold, France stopped its atmospheric testing. A little bit later, France again, you know, did an act in New Zealand, a terrorist act, blew up our peace boat, the Rainbow Warrior. A state-sponsored terrorism. But rather than going off and attacking France and starting a war, we went to the United Nations, and it solved the issue. It got France to apologise and give a penalty, give compensation to our government and to Greenpeace. They bought a new boat, Rainbow Warrior 2. It's been travelling around doing other campaigns. And in actual fact, I'm very thankful to the French, because out of that compensation money, we now have a peace education fund, and that's sort of how I can go around doing peace work, paid by the French. Very nice. I thank them every time I go to France. So by having those two things, the possibility of resolving conflicts through international mechanisms, and the horror of what war and nuclear weapons, the preparation for war also is on individual people, helped change the attitudes in New Zealand so that we then became nuclear free. And when it first came about, when we brought in a nuclear free government, there was still a lot of skeptics saying, oh, well, watch out, you know, this is really going to be problematic. We might lose a lot of trade. You know, we might get invaded by the Russians. I mean, there's all this sort of stuff. We might not have the same influence with our allies. Do you recognise any of those arguments? I think you hear some of those here, why Britain should still have nuclear weapons. There are a lot of skeptics. It was really close. But then after we became nuclear free, lo and behold, we got recognised around the world. People were buying New Zealand nuclear free products. We would get cheered when we went to the United Nations. Because this was an example of peace, that our nuclear abolition legislation that could inspire people that a nuclear weapons-free world was possible. So we found we had greater credit as a peacemaker than we did as a warmonger. And I think that's the message I'm bringing, because I know you've got some of these arguments in the UK at the moment over trident. You know, you've got a question, do you renew it for however many $billion it is, because that's going to be good for the status of the United Kingdom and make sure you're an important player in the world? Or do you get rid of it and have a new framework of leadership for the United Kingdom, one which is as a peacemaker and building, the new world, which most of us have already entered, an interdependent world where the idea of blowing up the people who we're trading with or playing sports with or going to schools or got people in our universities from those countries, the idea of blowing up that country with nuclear weapons is absurd, and most of us realise that. But there are still a few sceptics. So I think it's possible. We did it in New Zealand. I think you can do it in the United Kingdom also. Become a nuclear-free peacemaker, and you'll get a lot of credit around the world. The UK is the first of the nuclear weapon states to abandon the nuclear doctrine. You will get a lot of kudos around the world. It will help you, with your trade, with relations and things like that. And we'll be there backing you. So all the best. We're behind you, and let's go to success.
Our next, we got about 3 contributions, 2 or 3 from the floor, and the first one is Norbert Stute. He's a peace activist and socially committed German citizen and physician, and his website www.betterworldlinks.org is an online resource with over 60,000 links on peace, human rights, environment and social justice, among other topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Norbert.
I just want to talk with you about a little hobby of mine, and started 15 years ago. What is Better World Links? Better World Links is a powerful tool for positive change, and it could be your tool if you choose to do so. It has 80,000 plus hand-picked links on peace, human rights, the environment, social justice, and many, many more issues which are relevant for our future and your kids, etc. Please move on. That's the way it looks like, featuring essentially... Oh. I'm a beginner. Anyway, featuring a lot of issues on the left column, featuring real news on the right upper corner, very important, featuring hot topics like Occupy Wall Street, Right Livelihood Awards this year, Non-Violence Day, and of course there were the other initiatives which were just presented by Jeremy before. And that's the way it looks like. And if you move on, I just want to emphasize that Better World Links is, I think, the leading link list on peace in English. It can be a guide for those who want to do good. There's essentially a Google directory for NGOs. As you know, Google focuses on commercial issues. We don't. It works like a Wikipedia for links, not for texts, but for links, quality links. And people like users and moderators can contribute if they wish to do so. It's open, it's free of charge, and has no advertisements for principal reasons. Who uses it? Well, actually I don't know, but I figure it's citizens who want to know things. Students, journalists, teachers, people who want to make a difference. NGOs, activists, campaigners. I'm not so sure about politicians and decision makers, but who knows, one day, maybe parts of their family and the like. And we, a couple of years ago, established a very fruitful partnership with the Right Livelihood Award, featuring each and every one of their awardees, 140 or so, with 30 plus links of information on their work and what they actually do and contribute. And likewise, we are reaching out to other organizations, and we are very happy to support the 4D campaign, but also whoever is here and has issues. I think I discovered Peter Weil accidentally a year ago. and he's on there as well. Please move on. You can inform yourself and others, and you can do so fast. You can advance your favorite NGO project. You can make contacts and you can network. You can get inspired. I quite often enjoy it myself. People who have done these incredible things, like Mangari Maathai, whom we featured as the Hero of the Month, and learn from others. You can share your knowledge and experience and thus make a difference. Please, next one. Now, regarding the 4D Charter for World Peace, there is this strong interconnectedness of all these issues: peace, human rights, environment, and social justice. I personally, in addition to what BJ was elaborating on, feel that the justice aspect in 4D and perhaps the sustainability aspect of it needs a little bit more emphasis, at least in the text or in the focus perhaps, but it's part of it anyway. And the main message is we need an integrated and cooperative approach. It's the best way to achieve anything, and we happily support the goals and means laid out in this 4D Charter. And like I said initially, cooperate, help each other, and develop a joint strategy. I wish the very best. And please, just the final one, an invitation to get involved. We need your input. You can just use it, contribute, or tell others. And especially volunteers and experts are welcome and can only make it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norbert. Very good presentation. Okay. Our next speaker is Maureen Goodman, Program Director of Brahmkumari's World Spiritual University, UK. And she has developed the university's outreach community work in the UK, including in prisons, healthcare, education, and with young people. I suppose she's going to speak about spirituality and world peace. So please welcome Maureen Goodman.
Thank you. I begin with a greeting of peace, Om Shanti, which reminds us of the natural state of peace that we all have inside. And I've been very interested hearing all the different contributions and seeing the connections. And it's so vital, as has been shared by so many, that the connections between us are strengthened so that we build up a momentum together as we work for peace from all our different perspectives. I value the balanced approach that 4D is taking, what it is that we need to step back from and what it is that we need to develop in our societies. But I do have a question. When we're working towards peace, is it right to use the metaphors of war? Can we fight for peace? I don't believe so. In the Brahma Kumaris, we understand and work very much with the connection between the inner and the outer, and understand that the state of the world today is actually a reflection of the state of the inner world of human beings. And if there's violence within, in other words, if there are violent thoughts of anger or hatred or fear even, then those thoughts are going to then lead me to attitudes and values and actions which will move away from peace. Val talked about love, and that very much is part of the inside-out paradigm. In our world usually, whether we look at human relationships, whether we look at the way governments work, the approach is very much a reactionary one. Something happens, there's a crisis, and then we react, and then we try to make that better. And in doing so, we then are actually not using I think just one microphone. Can you not hear me with this microphone? Is that okay? That might be a bit better. When we just react, then like Einstein said, we're just simply responding to a situation with the same level of thinking to what created that situation. We need to harness our inner power and our inner qualities in order to make a real difference. I believe that violent thoughts do create a violent world. A change of consciousness is needed to move away from the consciousness of separation, to move away from the consciousness that happiness comes from acquiring things, from competition, from being better than the other, from the ever-increasing spiral of growth. And we all, our governments seem to tell us if you have a credit crisis, spend your way out of it. I can never quite understand that solution. Sorry?
It's only for the banks.
Yes, it's exactly for the banks, but people buy into it. A change of consciousness within that begins to see all of us, for us to see each other not as different. We are different in the sense that we have many, there's a variety within the human world, and that creates a lot of richness in our world. But we are one humanity and one human family. And so this kind of change of consciousness then leads to the values that can create a culture of peace. Values such as respect, tolerance, compassion, and humanity. And these are the values that all too often we see are missing in our world. It's so important to bring about peace, to change hearts and minds. And when there's a state of inner peace and a state of inner love, there is actually a clarity. It's going to go together. There's actually a clarity within, a clarity that will enable us to take those decisions and make those choices that will not only be of benefit and upliftment to me and my family and my surroundings, but also to the wider world as a whole. It's no longer the time to only think selfishly. We have to think of everyone together, because our interconnectedness means that whatever it is that I do, it's going to affect somebody in a faraway place. Whatever somebody else does in China or Africa is going to affect us in Britain. Our world is absolutely interconnected. Our human consciousness is interconnected. In the Brahma Kumaris, we work very much in the field of education, spiritual education, helping people to develop the values for a culture of peace. But it's not just values in terms of theory. Living by those values creates communities which work with respect, which live in harmony, which are prepared to educate their children, are prepared to give empowerment to women and those who are at the margins. We work with solar energy projects. We work with young people. We help to transform the lives of people who are in prisons. Spiritual values has a very practical application. If you transform a human being, it's the greatest gift that you can give to society as a whole. And so I hope that in all the work that you do, and I know this is something that my brother Vijay is very well aware of, our campaigning cannot be successful ultimately without the awareness of the change of consciousness that is needed within the hearts and minds of each and every person on this planet. And so that begins not by me saying you have to do it, but it begins with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri, taking us through a journey of inner peace. Our last speaker for the day is Emmanuel Ray, and he's a London-based presenter and socialite, and he's won Fashion Icon of the Year award at Fashion's Finest Awards UK 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Emmanuel.
I almost forgot I was going to speak because I was listening to everybody else and I thought, oh wow, wonderful speakers. And then it hit me when he pointed out and said, you're next. But thank you so much for making me part of this. Fashion is the main thing I do, obviously. I'm a fashion and entertainment presenter and commentator. But I also have been involved in peace and human rights issues from a very young age. So when Hoor, is he here?
Yeah,
Oh, there you go. Thank you very much. When Hoor contacted my publicist, he said we'd be interested if Emmanuel Ray would become an ambassador for World Peace. And I was quite excited, so I said to my publicist, okay, tell them not to talk to anybody else in fashion. Just me only. Let me be the first, and everybody else can come after that. And then they said, yes, of course. I said, wonderful. And winning the award, well, apparently I'm the first Asian male, or the first man from ethnic minority to win a Fashion Icon award in the whole of Europe. So it's put me under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of responsibilities now. And I am using that to draw attention towards all the charities and human rights campaigns I support. I was born and raised in Sri Lanka during the Civil War in extreme poverty. But I always wanted to be an entertainer. I became a dancer when I was 6 and a model when I was 15. And I was one of the very few people in the industry who kept pushing the fact that we need to use the flamboyance of fashion and show business to draw attention to worthy causes, such as world peace. So I've been involved with the Ceylon Workers' Congress, campaigns in the Middle East. We were also part of the All Out campaign in successfully persuading the Ugandan government to abolish the death penalty for sexual minorities. And we're very happy that it was successful. It's one of the most difficult campaigns I've ever done. No Hate campaign in Los Angeles. I represented Britain. So there's a lot of other stuff I do. And it's kind of slightly upsetting because none of my colleagues or my competition, if I may use the word, those who do what I do, actually come forward to support any human rights campaigns or peace campaigns. So I keep telling them, we should work together. But I do work in an industry which is quite bitchy and superficial, and everyone's so obsessed with establishing their career and being more famous than the other one. And the moment they see something bad written about you, they rejoice. So amidst all this, I'm trying to show that the fashion shows being hosted in aid of children's charities. I celebrated my birthday in aid of the Dispossessed Fund because I constantly want to support people who live in poverty and are dispossessed, people who don't have a voice. Because I worked extremely hard to get where I am. And my parents were also involved in working with refugees, asylum seekers, campaigning for peace in Sri Lanka. So all of this inspired me. And I plan to use, we've been using social networking a lot, like Facebook and Twitter, to draw attention towards our campaigns and the causes we support. And I'm trying to, once I officially become an ambassador for your charity, can I call it a charity? No, a cause. Officially become an ambassador. I've been reading all your material. There's so much to learn, and I'm still learning a lot about policies and governments and world issues and everything. My career keeps me very busy, so whatever time I have left, I try to gather as much information as possible, because when you speak, you need to come out with good stuff, otherwise people laugh at you. Which is great when I'm doing stand-up comedy, but not to this sort of setting. So I plan to, once I've officially become an ambassador, I'm going to be involving so many other entertainers, lots of young people who are in the industry, in fashion, in show business, who have shown some sort of interest at least to the peace campaigns and human rights work I've done. So I think the more that they're involved, the better. And we live in a celebrity-obsessed culture, we're in a fashion-obsessed culture, and I think fashion, celebrity, show business are very powerful mediums which can be used as a vehicle to promote the campaign for peace. And I even think that the number in the letter 4D is really good because we live in the age of 3D. So I think young people would come forward as well, and I'm trying to start some campaigns and get involved, get young people, students as well, from the local community involved in this cause. So I have to say a big thank you to Hur and to Vijay for involving me in this, because I feel very honored and very special. Thank you very much.